We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Mayor Reese,
Here.
Councilmember Osk,
Here.
Councilmember Nelson,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Schuldis,
Here.
Fagerly, here, Osmus,
Here.
Butterfield,
Here.
O'Brien.
Here.
All members are present.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to add item I, to consider directing staff on a ordinance allowing Class 2 ATV vehicles on roads in Willmar.
11.
That'd be I, yes.
Where's
Audrey.
Yep, the add. Here.
Eight. What now? I don't, where's H?
Yep, that's I.
Oh, I see.
Can we do this to him? Yeah. You want to sign it again?
Yes, Audrey.
I was just going to say, I think it might be helpful for the people here to clarify what we're doing tonight with the item regarding Kira and what we're not doing tonight, because I know the radio station had something on it that was not correct with what we were doing tonight or not. And so if people are here thinking we're going to do something and we're not, it might be helpful if someone from staff would just clarify what we're doing.
Well, what the council is going to be considering tonight is the sale of the care center. There isn't going to be any discussion in regards to the parkland sale. So if you thought that, we're not going to be addressing that tonight.
Thank you.
Right, Robert?
That's correct, Mayor.
All right, thank you.
I'd offer to make a motion to approve an amended agenda.
Second. Okay, we got a motion and a second to pass the amended agenda with item I added. Any other? If not, roll call.
Councilmember Osk,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Schuldis,
Aye.
Fagerly, Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien.
All right,
8 ayes, 0 nays.
that passes. Next is the consent agenda. Kyle, Operations Director Kyle Box.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For council's consideration on the consent agenda tonight is the city council minutes from April 15th, city council work session minutes from April 29th, the local board of equalization minutes of from earlier, the date escapes me, from 2024, planning commission minutes of April 17th, planning commission minutes of May 1st, draft, board of zoning appeal minutes of May 2nd, draft, park and rec meeting minutes of March 20th, Willmar Municipal Utility Commission meeting minutes of April 22nd, the accounts payable report for April 10th through May 1st, 2024, the Willmar Township Fire Agreement, resolution to purchase a one-ton truck for Public Works, a resolution amending resolution number 2023-186, agricultural land leases, consideration of a temporary on-sale liquor license for the VFW, consideration of a temporary liquor license for Intuition Brewing, and for the annual city insurance, the statutory municipal liability coverage for limits for the city. For council's information is the Willmar Municipal Utility Financial Report from the month of February, the monthly permitting building permit report from April, and the investment report through the end of March. Continuing on, that is it for the consent agenda.
All right, thank you.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. I have one question for our city attorney, Robert. We've only got, we're down to one person on the zoning appeals. Could we redo the makeup so that we include the zoning appeals board, or the planning commission?
Mayor, I would have to look at the charter to see if the composition of the appeals board is defined in the charter. It may require a charter amendment,
Okay,
which I could certainly outline the process for such an amendment to move forward with the charter commission. It would have to start with the charter commission likely and come to the city council.
but I could make it simpler. Audrey?
Wouldn't that kind of go against, they're there to appeal something that the planning commission has not done, so bringing the planning commission, I think they need to be two separate entities to revisit. I mean, it's a revisiting a request as far as I remember.
Well, we've got just one person on the zoning appeals, and he's on the planning, right? No?
Mr. Mayor, he is not. The one person that we do have on the Board of Zoning Appeals, he's been sitting there for 2 years now, and we're actively recruiting new members to join the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll leave it alone. Yes, Julie?
Don't we have one more pending on zoning appeals? Do we have one more approval? No? Okay.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah, Rick?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So is that even legal to have one person voting on the issue?
They haven't been meeting.
Well, I know that. They had the first meeting.
Now, they had a meeting in this, underneath
They
this
voted on
consent
the
agenda.
thing. Well, he did.
Yeah.
He was a member. He voted himself president. He voted for himself. So, I mean, you should have at least 3.
Rick J. Lawton will be here in 2 weeks. Maybe he might reconsider going back on it.
Well, yeah.
Well,
I mean, we need people, so we need volunteers to join the Board of Zoning.
well, Christopher's working on it. We'll leave it at that. Okay?
Thank you.
Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Schuldis.
Aye.
Bagley.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Butterfield.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Osk.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Next is our open forum, and I have 4 people that have asked to speak. You get 3 minutes, and please give your name and address as you come to the stand. First is Joe Ridler.
Joe Ridler, 1912 20th Avenue, Southwest Willmar. Tonight's subject is transparency. Your administration fails in transparency, Mayor. You have a rogue city administrator that is spending money hand over fist. You have stuff on your agenda tonight you won't allow us to talk about. This is not right. You're asking us to be competitors to companies that are in town. My money, your money, whoever lives. Our city administrator doesn't live in this city.
Yes, she does.
Okay, about time. I've been walking our ward for the Kira deal, and I'm telling you, your citizens are upset. Get out and talk to your citizens, all of you. You're not. They're upset. They're wondering where the paybacks are coming. They're wondering where the under the table deals are. That's not the city of Willmar. 62 years. I've seen a lot of changes. You guys need to clean house. You need to clean the attitude up. Please, transparency. I'm a little wound up tonight. I'm sorry I'm a little jittery, but I'm going to tell you something. The stuff that's going on, it's BS. BS on BS. I'm sorry. You need to hear it. Now, there are people that walked out of here tonight. We have freedom of speech, First Amendment, open forum, and you are not letting people speak. And then you allow three people to talk on a subject, that's against the First Amendment. You need to change it. Change it. Vote no, no, no. Thank you.
Next is Carrie Mole.
I decline due to the fact that I don't know what you people are doing or talking about. And the reason I came here is not broached or come up. So I can't make a comment. Yeah. About the internet and the rice care home. Council has not, none of you have said anything regarding creating
She needs to come.
an outline of what you're discussing. It hasn't come up. I'm looking for everything. What's going on? I don't know. I can't comment on what's not said.
They're censoring you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wanted some updated information.
Robert?
Those projects.
Excuse me. Mayor, council, members of the audience, the open forum was established by the city council as an opportunity for citizens to come address the city council on matters that are not already on the agenda for tonight.
Well, excuse me. I'm an old woman, and the only way I get any information is from the internet.
Not trying to argue with anyone, I'm trying to point out the procedure that's in place for the open forum. That's the rules the city council has established. City councils are not required to open up a portion of their meeting to the audience to address the council. You're required to be allowed to observe the council conduct their business. The council has established this procedure to hear from its residents, but it also has to stick to the rules that it's established. Okay, that's.
All right, so you don't want to speak? All right, we'll move on. Jason Butler?
I'm Jason Butler. I'm here on behalf of my investment company. We own a property at 309.
Your address.
My address is 299 Francis Street, Spicer. I'm talking about 309 Benson Avenue, Southwest. 4 months ago, we approached the city. We had a water issue come into our building. Called the city. City came down, did their due diligence, blamed it on somebody else, on the utilities. Utilities came down, found out there's a utility room in front of my building that's 12 feet underground that has a sub pump. Nobody fixed it. So I called back to the city. City got nervous, called the insurance company, made a claim. Instant denial from the insurance company, okay? So then we do our due diligence. The insurance company comes out, hires all these people to come out and look, found out that utility box, sub pump pipe has been running under my road since 1992. You can park Volkswagens under my building and under Benson Avenue. Now I find out in the last month, well, back up, my wall has now fallen in 4 inches to the south, matter of months before my building collapses. I find out People, landowners have been fighting this for 20 years, complaining about this reversed storm sewer. Semi fell through the road 5 years ago. You know what the city did? Dumped some gravel in it, put some asphalt on it, cover it up. That road is dangerous. There's so many cavities under there, that road could collapse at any time. My building is about to collapse, and I'm tired of this, and I'm not eating this. I've been to your administration 4 times. They blame it on utilities. Utility blames it on the city. Then they hide behind the insurance company. I'm losing $4,000 a month. I can't have my renters in there. My building's falling down, and all this city does is blame it on somebody else. I'm losing my ass. And I know this isn't you. I'm taking my frustration out on you guys, but you guys chose to sit there. I am fed up. I am not my neighbor. I'm not waiting 20 years. I have the sand and I have the financial resources to fight you to the end, and I will. There's 3 things that need to be done. Benson Avenue from 3rd Street to 4th Street should be shut down immediately because it's unsafe. Cars and people can fall through. Water needs to get fixed, and my building needs to get fixed. And it needs to get fixed now, not in 20 years. Now. I need something to happen now. And we're going to see if the city does this with ethics or without ethics. Because this is ridiculous. He shouldn't have to sit here for 20 years and fight you guys because he doesn't have the money to fight you. And now it came into my building. Well, I'm not standing back.
All right. Next, Paul Kudrowski.
Hello, I'm Paul Kudrowski, 3637 15th Avenue Southwest. I've got a building downtown next to Jason's. I went through quite a little hassle with the city on that building. And we've always had problems with the storm sewer. And Randy Cardell used to work for the city. He's retired and passed away, unfortunately, or he could be here to tell you. But water, when it rains, still comes up from the ground up through the pavement. And the logic of that, I don't understand. This was in the 90s. We land up with a duct in the sidewalk that the city would do nothing about. I had to break it up myself, fix it, get Randy down there to approve it. Then I land up putting the concrete over it myself. And I thought, I'm paying taxes. What's going on here? And then I hear tonight where other people feel sort of the same. So when he told me there's hollow spots, and I'm thinking, 4 months ago, the city was made aware of it? Something isn't right. Because if I have a tree that's dead, I get a letter from the city, they give me 1 week. Does that sound fair? 4 months ago? I just don't understand it. So I just hope there's better relationship between the taxpayers and the people, and all you who represent us. I think you're all fine people, but I have to ask a question. How many of you were made aware of the problem? Can I ask that question?
We're not going to.
Well, I would like to know, because what I'm trying to point out is I don't think the city's working together. That's my opinion. I hope I'm wrong. But please, try to do better. This shouldn't be this way. And if it is indeed empty under the street, empty under his building, what about mine? Is the city going to take pictures and see what's happening and let the people know? I guess those are the questions I have, and I'm hoping somebody could get back to me with some answers. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Next is a public hearing on proposed conduit financing for Bethesda Senior Housing Project. We'll open the public hearing, and who's here from Bethesda? Okay. Oh, I didn't see you. All right. You going to address us? Yeah.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thanks for the time on the agenda this evening. I'm Michelle Hafner, representing Bethesda, and I'm here this evening in request for the city to consider what's called a host city approval as it pertains to our senior living development next to our main Willmar campus on Willmar Avenue. We are at the stage of closing on our financing, which we have agreements with 3 other cities, including DeGraff, Pennock, and Prindsburg. Each of those 3 cities would be issuing tax-exempt revenue bonds for Bethesda to finance this project. But because the project is in the jurisdiction of the city of Willmar, state and federal law require us to get the Willmar City Council, or the city of Willmar, to approve what's called a host, joint powers, to allow those cities to work with us within the city of Willmar. I'll be available to take questions, but that's really all I have. We look forward to continuing our mission and serving our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. The hearing is open. Did anybody want to speak to this? If not, I'll close the public hearing. I need a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Discussion. Audrey?
Yeah. Just seeking clarification, I understand this. What would happen, what's the city's responsibility if they were to default?
I'm sorry, Councilmember, could you repeat the question?
I think I understand this, and I understand that they're working with other communities, and we're just being asked to sign on. When would our responsibility kick in? Would it only be if they were to default on these, or what's the city's responsibility? Can you kind of explain why we need to do this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The city's responsibility is simply to sign on to the joint powers agreement because you are the community in which this facility will be located. The city is assuming no responsibility to repay any of the bonds that would be issued through the other jurisdictions.
So that's it, just acknowledging they're here?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm excited for the project. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Schultes.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Butterfield.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Osk.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Next is the public hearing of an ordinance authorizing sale of land to Cura. Robert?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. In your packet is a ordinance and a summary of the ordinance authorizing the sale and transfer of the real estate on which the care center is situated to Cura. This has come before the council before. Before I summarize the transaction, I do want to be crystal clear. This is the care center property. This has no bearing whatsoever on the Swanson Field property for the separate project that has come before the council previously. So on the care center, the City Council adopted Resolution 2024-029 on March 11th, which approved the basic framework for this series of transactions that will result in the care center transferring from city ownership and operation by Centricare under an operating lease of all of the hospital facilities with the city to Cura. Centricare had undergone an RFP process seeking to find responsible providers to essentially hand the facility off to and involve the city in the RFP selection process. I believe there was strong support for Cura to be the entity that would step in and become the operator of that facility. The city, in Resolution 2024-029, approved the concept where, in order for the real estate to transfer to Cura. The operations have already transferred under a sublease between CentraCare and Cura, but in order for the real estate to transfer and consolidate ownership of the facility in Cura's hands, the city agreed to amend its lease with CentraCare to remove the care center from the hospital facilities that CentraCare operates on the city's behalf, and then to transfer directly the care center real estate to Cura. There are two documents that still have to come back to the council. This ordinance specifies that there will be a purchase agreement between the city and Cura that is still being worked on, that will come back to the council for approval. The second agreement that will come before you is the amendment of the lease to remove the care center property. And pursuant to Resolution 2024-029, in addition to removing the care center property from the lease, the former Rice Home Medical facilities, one of which is in the city of Willmar, one of which is in Redwood Falls, would also be removed from that lease and returned to unencumbered city ownership for the city to redevelop or dispose of as it determines appropriate in the future.
All right.
So with that, I would certainly welcome any questions. This is a public hearing, so you should invite the public to comment, but the recommendation would be first to approve the ordinance authorizing the sale, and second to authorize the publication of that ordinance by summary.
Now, again, as our city attorney has outlined, this is only the sale for the care center. That's it. Nothing else. So I will open the hearing for public comment. Anybody want to speak to this? You come up. I would ask that you would give your name and address and then enter it on the,
On the sheet here.
yes.
My name's Kari Moe. My address is 1420 Trot Avenue here in Willmar. My question that I have needs to be directed to you, Mr. Scott. You can clarify, and maybe I didn't understand completely, but my understanding of what you said was that you were directing the council to determine whether or not to sell the land versus the building. Is that correct?
The real estate, which is the land,
Because of leasehold property
the land
conditions.
and the building, the actual business operating in the facility has been leased to CentraCare. CentraCare has,
Whoa, back up. Which part has been leased?
the actual business operating on the premises, the structure and the real estate, the land is owned by the city.
The structure and the lease, no, the structure and the land are on the lease?
Yes, those have been leased to CentraCare. CentraCare essentially was the operator of that facility pursuant to the lease.
Okay. And you people are positioned with the job of deciding on selling the property to Cura, am I correct?
That's right.
Okay, well, that kind of answers whatever. I think. I'm a little confused regarding the leasehold position. You either sell land, or you sell building, or you sell land and the building. Am I wrong?
What's being sold, or what would be sold once the purchase agreement is finalized, is the real estate, the land and the building.
The land and the building.
Cura is already on site operating the facility pursuant to a sublease with.
So they have a lease for the operating of the business. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's what I needed to find out. Has anyone looked into Because I know that there's been scuttlebutt, a lot of scuttlebutt about what Kira plans to do for that area in relationship to the parkland. Has anyone looked into the Hawk Creek watershed zoning area? And what it constitutes and how much of an area that land somewhat is in?
To be clear, this transaction is the care center. This isn't concerning the adjacent property. This is not concerning any new development that
Okay,
will occur on
okay.
site.
I won't go there then. Well, I guess then my question is done. I just wanted to get clear about what you people were voting on here. Thank you.
Good card. Anybody else want to speak to the sale of the care center?
Well, I just heard a little, almost like alumni sound, talking about Rice Home Medical. And I know now that you said it's not on the agenda for tonight, even though it was just mentioned. Is that property still under the city
Yes.
and the building?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then, what I'd like to say, take it for your building, for the city hall. You could walk in that building tomorrow. So, that's all I got to say.
Thanks.
Oh,
Identify yourself.
Yeah. Carol, give us, most of us know you, but if you would give your name and
yeah,
address.
I'm just writing it, sorry. Just had to speak to make sure I wasn't completely, demented. Anyway, Carol Laumer at 1313 Ella Avenue Northwest.
Thank you, Carol.
Thanks.
All right. Anybody else?
Familiar face tonight. Joe Riddler, 1912 20th Avenue Southwest. Again, it goes to transparency. Are we selling or are we giving it? No disclosure has been brought up about what we're selling our city. Again, in going through the neighborhood, talking to people, they're asking what in the world's going on. Actually, they're saying a little bit more verbiage than that. So are we selling or are we giving? And what tax base are they going to be? Big questions. Because everybody's hoping we're selling, we're going to make money on it, and they're going to be on the tax roll paying their fair share of taxes. Or are they going to hide under the whatchamacallit, non-profit? So please clarify that tonight, because there's a lot of people that don't know what's going on.
Robert?
Mayor, members of the council, the framework discussed in Resolution 2024-029 is that the property would be transferred, there would be no purchase price. The consideration the city is receiving is a number of ways. One, they are receiving 2 buildings back, being carved out of the original lease from Centricare, that the city would then be free to potentially market itself or redevelop. The second is the city has focused, as it did in the original operating lease with Centricare, on ensuring that this facility continues to operate in the city of Willmar. I know the Planning Commission had reviewed this, had made a recommendation that the city seek to include a term in this agreement that Kira commits to operate on the site for a minimum period of 5 years. That's certainly something we will seek to include in the purchase agreement that would have to come before you yet. But that's the city's policy priorities that we have been working towards in this transaction.
I find that interesting. So it's a $5.7 million building. We're going to transfer it to a third party, and we never even had any offers from another company. There's other people out there that run these facilities. So 5.7, we're going to transfer it, and you're giving away 5.7 for 5 years. For 5 years. What are they going to do with it in 5 years? They can do a lot. I mean, these people, they have no overhead. We're giving them 5.7. That's what it's assessed at. I mean, who comes into town and gets a $5.7 million building for nothing? Again, transparency. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else? All right, I will close the public hearing.
Mayor, I think Mr. Scott wants to address that.
I just, before you close the public hearing, Mayor, I wanted to just respond to that last comment, which is, the city was not free to market this building to any other prospective purchaser. The city is under a long-term lease with Centricare to operate all of the Rice Hospital facilities. With Centricare's determination to not continue in this line of business anymore and to seek out another responsible partner. The city was compensated, in a sense, for all of the hospital facilities that transferred to Centricare when Centricare satisfied the bonds the city had outstanding on all of these facilities. This was a Centricare initiative. The city's part in this is just to facilitate transferring the ownership to Cura to complete that transaction that Centricare initiated, and is receiving some assurances that the facility will remain in operation in the community, and some other consideration directly from Centricare to agree to carve this out of the lease and transfer it to Cura.
Aren't there some bond payments involved?
Correct, but a few years ago, Centricare satisfied all of the bonds that were outstanding in the city's name on all of the Rice facilities.
Okay. Okay, I closed the public hearing.
I think it would be appropriate. I made my comments intending they would be still within the hearing.
Ask Joe to come up here.
Thank you, Mayor, for doing that. So under this, just so I can grasp this and explain this to people when I go get signatures for the next part of this deal, is that Centricare basically nigged on the lease. They backed out of it. They said they don't want to be part of the home care. Don't say no, Audrey, that's what they are doing. So they found somebody to sublease it, right? So in this sublease, these people are coming in board, they have no overhead pay. We're giving them a facility. Centricare already took care of the bonding, it's paid for. And so what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna hand it over and we had control of the building. This doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, folks. This is, again, transparency is not clear to our citizens. Thank you. Thank you for doing that, Mayor.
All right, I'll close the public hearing. Need a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance authorizing the sale of 4.10 acres of land to Cura.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion. Tom?
Just to make this clear for everybody that might be misunderstanding this, I don't know what a couple of addresses are, but I believe the CARE site unit is at 1801 Willmar Avenue Southwest. And it's the nursing home building and the land that, with the parking lot and the grassland that's connected to that. That's what's gonna be up on this. The old Rice Home Medical Building on 19th Avenue. And I have no clue where the Rice Home Medical Building in Redwood Falls is at. That's the three that I'm taking is on this. And no parkland, it's just the site at 1801 Willmar Avenue Southwest with the business operating. Does that about sum it up?
Any other discussion? Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, if we don't do it, Centricare is going to be out of the business. They'll shut down the facility. It'll be empty for 5 years. And you know what happens when a building is empty. And it's not costing the taxpayers anything right now. So it's a good project out there, and we need to keep it going. It helps a lot of people. probably not the best situation, but that's what happened when you sign leases. Thank you.
Any other comments? Audrey?
I feel like I need to comment, and because I still serve on the Rice Board. I'm supportive of this transaction. The lease is an extremely complicated document. They have paid off the debt. They have made a commitment to keep these services, that's part of the lease. They've made a commitment to keep these services in our community. They went through an extensive process to try to find a good match to do this. We worked through that. It's complicated to say that you don't pay off, in my mind, you don't pay off liabilities unless you have assets. This is an example of part of that complicated lease where they are assuring, and the Planning Commission is asked to make sure that they stay in business with that. It's a good company. If you go and check other locations that they're at with that. It is hard to explain the underneath with that lease. The lease is out there. If you want to go read it, I participated in when we put the lease together. I can't tell you how many attorneys worked to put that lease together. It's very complicated. I still believe it was the best thing for us to do for our regional healthcare center. And this is just one piece that has been worked on very hard to assure that it stays in our community and is successful. And this is one of the transactions to do that.
Julie?
I think, a clarification on what Audrey was talking about is the original lease when Rice Memorial Hospital was transferred over to Centricare and their lease of our properties. Then the nursing home was a small piece of that. So it was that whole transaction of Centricare and the hospital was very complex.
Just to further, Julie was, Councilmember Osmus was part of that process too. But there was a triangle that was created, if you remember correctly. It was a way for the hospital to be able to work with ACMC, and Caris Health was created to be that triangle, to be able to bring those three together. And so you had a public and a private and a not-for-profit that created this triangle. And so that is what I was referring to as a way for us to keep working with managed care. The hospital existed but didn't have its own doctors. ACMC existed but needed a place to have some of the other practices to go. So I don't regret what we did. I think we made the right decision. I don't think we're giving this away. I think we are doing what's best for our community regarding this.
Anybody else? Justin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll echo comments that have been made up here by colleagues that I think this is very much in the best interest of the community. The worst possible situation would be, well, I guess there would be a toss-up between a city-run care center, which I can't imagine, or not having that capacity, the lost capacity that we would have for residents of Willmar and surrounding communities to come there for rehab work and other care needs. Losing that would be catastrophic. So by far the best way forward, and gaining two properties in those Rice Home Medical facilities, both in Willmar and Redwood Falls. Those are new assets for the city to own. So I see this as by far the best possible solution for the community.
Anything else? All right, we've got a motion approving the sale of the land to Cura. Roll call.
Councilmember Scholz.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Butterfield.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Osk.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Now I'll make a motion to publish it by summary.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to publish by summary. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Butterfield.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Osk.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Shuldis.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That passes. Next is the ordinance authorizing the issuance of up to $11 million in general obligation bonds, Series 2024A. Tom?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Tom Odens, the Finance Director here at the city. We have two items for your consideration this evening. One is an ordinance and the other is a resolution. Per the city charter, section 212, we are required to approve an ordinance to borrow money, which also requires a public hearing. A brief overview, the 2024 street improvement projects have begun. You might have seen some construction equipment hit the streets. And we also have our $2.3 million of equipment approved and on order. So that is going to be coming to us shortly here. Tonight we have Michaela Hewitt from Baker Tilly, and she has a few slides that she's going to go over with the council tonight to give you a little bit more detail of the bond, and it's also just going to go over just a little bit more of a timeline as we've covered very briefly. So I'll introduce you, Michaela.
Welcome, Michaela.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Again, I'm here representing Baker Tilly and just providing a quick overview of the authorization of the bond sale following the public hearing on the bond ordinance. So again, here's a quick timeline leading up to tonight. April 15th, the ordinance was introduced. April 27th, the public hearing notice was published. Tonight, May 6th, is the ordinance following public hearing. And then next step would be May 18th, in which the ordinance would be published. Action item 2 would be the authorize the issuance of the general obligation bonds and set the date and time of the sale. Estimated par amount is about $10.675 million, and just under the authorizing ordinance amount of $11 million. Here's a summary of the three purposes of the GO bonds. We're looking at street improvements with a par amount of about $7.1 million. That would be supported by both levy and assessments. The assessment portion is about $3.1 million, and the term of the bonds is 15-year repayment. The sanitary sewer utility portion is about $1.47 million. And that is also a 15-year term. And the last piece is the equipment for just over $2 million, and that is a 10-year term. Following tonight, next steps for the bond sale itself. Again, tonight would be the ordinance public hearing and then the bond authorization for the sale of the bonds. The credit rating call with Moody's would be May 16th. The preliminary official statement would be published May 23rd. June 3rd would be the date that the competitive bids would be taken, and then the authorization of the sale, that council meeting that night. And then the estimated date for which the bond proceeds would be received is June 27th. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on the bond structure itself or the process moving forward. And it is a public hearing as well, so I'll step aside for any comments.
Thank you, Michaela. First, I'll open the public hearing, and if anybody wants to comment. Any comments? If not, I'll close the public hearing and bring it up to the council. We need a motion to approve the authorization of the GO bonds.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Discussion. No discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus.
Aye.
Butterfield.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Osk.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Shuldis.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That passes. Next is a We need a resolution providing for the competitive negotiation sale of $10,675,000 in geo improvement bonds.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Discussion? No discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Osk,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Schuldis,
Aye.
Begerly,
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Michaela, did you have something you wanted to say?
I did not. I was just going to close out when you were done.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Michaela. Now we need an ordinance to reallocate local option sales tax dollars. And I'll call on our city administrator, Leslie.
Good evening, council. Tonight, we are looking at the reallocation of the local sales tax. I'm trying to get to my spot here. With very little success. So over the past, since 2018, the sales tax went into effect, and we had multiple projects going on. So we're going to reallocate funds for the outdoor ice rink that was approved April 1st. So the hearing tonight is to approve the ordinance that goes along with that. It keeps moving on me. So much for technology.
Can I help her?
Got it. So.
Okay.
The ordinance tonight is to approve the action the council took on April 1st, reallocating the balance of local sales tax funding from various sales tax projects. And those projects came about because of the 2018 sales tax, which allowed 10% of the total funding of each project to one of the other projects. The total reallocation of $612,071.50 will be transferred from completed projects of Robbins Island, Swanson Field, and the recreation fields. That will be transferred to the Recreation Event Center balance of $978,708.54 for a total balance of $1,590,780.04 for the construction of the outdoor covered ice rink. And I will stand for any questions.
I will
Public hearing.
open the public hearing for any comment in regards to the reallocation of local option sales tax dollars. Anybody want to speak to this? Yes. Give your name and address and then
Margot
register it
Nimitz,
there.
1118 Ramblewood. I guess I want to make a comment regarding the senior center. And Julie, I know you were down there trying to get votes for when all this was going on and all the tax money that was supposed to be going to building a new building. And nothing has happened yet. And I'm wondering, maybe with that extra money, they could replace the roofing until they figure what's going on with the new building. So I think that should be looked at, and and maybe in the future, they should take smaller amount of projects instead of 6 of them, maybe start with 2 or 3 and make sure they get completed first. But I think the senior center needs to be looked at, and if it's not, it'd be nice if they could do some repairs, if nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, I'll close the public hearing and bring it to the council for a motion.
I'll make the motion to authorize the real allocation of sales tax dollars to the covered outdoor rink in amount of about $1.5 million.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Discussion. Julie?
We're not allocating that much, are we?
No.
Reallocation of 1.5? No,
$612,071.50 is the allocation.
that's what the motion should be, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just amend it to that amount. I know the total amount's gonna be 1.5.
Rick, did you have something?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Has anyone come back with any bids yet?
No, we can't go out for RFPs until this allocation happens.
Well, I thought they were gonna work on it,
Well, they are,
but nothing yet.
but nothing's been, no, you'll have to see the RFP and approve the RFP before we send it out.
Thank you.
Any more comments, questions? Audrey?
I will be voting no again tonight, and I truly believe there are more things that could be done at Robbins Island and Swanson Field, and that was the intent of the local option sales tax, and so I will be voting no.
Anybody? Tom?
When this local option sales tax was presented to the citizens of Willmar, Matt Dawson and the group that was working on it had this outdoor rink as one of their big key sellers. We're down to about 2 places where people skate, Garfield and the Civic Center. It just makes more sense to have all the hockey, ice skating in one location. You know, we can shut down the Garfield. It's served its purpose, warming houses, seen its better days. You know, I'm not big into hockey, or I don't even know how to ice skate, but the ones that do are going out there. And it's just going to be easier to have everything in one location. And during the summer, we can use this for other events or stuff like that. So I'll be in favor of it. And, you know, it took Matt Dawson to come back up in front to get this going back on the right direction.
Audrey?
I just want to clarify, I'm not against an outdoor ice rink. I'm against transferring money because there are still things that should have been done at Robbins Island. There are still things that should have been done at the event center that are going to come back to us in our capital improvement plan. And I think that those dollars should have been spent on the locations, on those locations, versus being transferred to this. And, you know, if there's a future local option sales tax, I'm not even opposed to the comment that was made is that we probably had too many projects right here in one local option sales tax, and we probably should be working on what the next one is. I'm not opposed to the ice rink. I'm opposed to taking money from other projects that the city's going to probably end up having to do maintenance or spend additional money on. That could have been done with that.
Anybody else? Justin?
Just to clarify, the funds that are being moved, am I right in clarifying in my thoughts that those are from projects that have already been closed out, have been deemed completed and closed out? And I anticipate Councilmember Nelson's follow-up that there are still things to do in those places, which I wouldn't disagree with, but these are projects, as far as lost dollars are concerned, that have been closed and finished. And I'm seeing Administrator Valiant shaking her head. Yes, is that, I'm correct? Correct. Okay.
Any other comments? Audrey?
I'll agree with you on that. There was a motion made that did that. But I will also stand behind, we do not have any additional money to spend on parks. We struggled with putting our CIP. So to come back with anything that needs to be done at the event center or in any parks within the next couple of years, we probably don't have the funds to do that. And that's fine. I know it's going to pass, and that's fine. I'm still going to vote no. Thank you.
Anybody else? Roll call.
Councilmember O'Brien?
Aye.
Osk?
Aye.
Nelson?
No.
Davis?
Aye.
Schuldis?
Aye.
Fagerly?
Aye.
Osmus?
Aye.
Butterfield?
Aye.
7 ayes, 1 nay.
Motion carries. Need a motion to publish by summary?
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Osk?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Schultes?
Aye.
Bagley?
Aye.
Osmus?
Aye.
Butterfield?
Aye.
O'Brien? 8 ayes, 0 nays.
That passes. Next item of business is Connect Willmar Initiative. Call on Operations Director Kyle Box.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to come and give an update on where we're at with the Connect Willmar Initiative. At your work session last Monday, we had made some pretty heavy asks of the council to come to be prepared to make some decisions tonight on how we want to proceed moving forward. Some reflection, some more review, and feedback from the council and yourselves. Right now, we're asking for this to be an information-only item tonight. We find that there's a little bit more work we can do, and if that's okay, if it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, I'll read my report to the council. So Willmar has identified a need for fast, reliable, and affordable fiber internet for every resident, business, and industry within the city of Willmar. This proposed project was to initially provide economic development incentives to the industrial park, to add to the shovel-ready status and promote the growth and development to our industrial park. The project has evolved into what it is known today as the Connect Willmar Initiative, which includes a connection for all, expansion of current service areas, and affordable internet pricing. This project is a private-public partnership. The City of Willmar will pay for, build, and be the sole owner of the fiber infrastructure. This model allows internet service providers, ISPs, to operate on the network and provide their services to the residents and businesses of Willmar. The City of Willmar will not be an ISP. A comprehensive project update was presented to the City Council at your work session on Monday, April 29th. The highlight of that update was the introduction of the long-awaited Performa, an interactive financing model that visualizes the project's financing, including the take rates and operational costs. Some major milestones that we've accomplished to date. We have completed the project's network architecture and engineering for Phase 1. Phase 1 alone, and correct me if I'm wrong, hometown team, but it's 168 miles of fiber just for Phase 1 alone. This was a significant accomplishment needed for the construction and costs to input into Phase 1 of the project. We've collected a letter of intent from an ISP and are in discussions with others to provide service on the network. We have collected nearly 600 survey results. That was the information that you saw in the January work session, and that survey is still open. Those results overwhelmingly support the idea of having fiber brought to each resident and business in town. We have collected, as of 6:30 p.m. tonight, 26 letters of support from local businesses and industries that have shared the desire to bring fiber to their facilities to improve and solidify their operations. And we are currently pending 9 more as of this evening that we've had conversations with. We've heard from the residents of Willmar that they understand the importance of bringing this 21st century infrastructure utility to their homes. And even with these milestones and accomplishments, we have realized that more can be done regarding outreach and community support. This continued effort aims to bring the complete and comprehensive data to the City Council so that you can make an informed decision and act in the best interest of the City of Willmar. Your support and approval are crucial for the success of this initiative. And we don't want to hide from the fact that key components of this project are still pending review, staff approval before it is brought back to you, the City Council. One of those main pieces is the network operations agreement that would be between the City of Willmar and Hometown Fiber. Hometown Fiber is the consultant that the city has hired to help us along with this project, and they would be the ones that we would bringing forward for recommendation to run the network operations for the fiber, for the project. This would be the governing document that allows Hometown Fiber to operate and maintain the open access network on behalf of the City of Willmar. After the most recent review of the agreement, we had an opportunity to sit down with the city attorney, and he has indicated, in which we agree, that the structure of the agreement is largely complete, withstanding a few sections that need further clarification. The review from the city attorney is very important in providing the document that the city council can mitigate exposures and risks to the city. Throughout these talks, Hometown Fiber has been flexible, favorable to all recommendations from staff and the city attorney. They want to be a partner for the city. Another area that continues to be worked on is the Network Operations Center, NOC. This is the control center, the brains of the fiber infrastructure. Hometown Fiber has provided an initial proposal to house the NOC in a portion of the old wastewater treatment facility. This location was chosen for a couple of reasons. It's central to the city, it's central to the operations, the proposed phases 1, 2, and 3, and because it's currently underutilized since it's not fully staffed. It is staffed, but it's not fully staffed anymore, and there's space in that facility that can be reimagined, redesigned, and house this operations. So this would significantly reduce the cost and time required for construction. The facility is there. Staff have met internally and relayed that proposal and realized that that would not interfere with any continued or future operations of the plant from a City of Willmar perspective. Like I had mentioned at the beginning, staff are recommending a pause on the decision-making process to ensure the City Council is appropriately informed and to address any remaining concerns. What has not changed and remains at the forefront of the efforts for the project's goals: to provide fast, reliable, and affordable fiber internet to every resident and business in Willmar, to provide a public infrastructure for private businesses to operate on, and to promote economic development in the industrial park and throughout the City of Willmar. These goals, which are deeply intertwined with the future of our community, are what we are all working towards. Mr. Mayor, if it's okay with you, I'd like to lay out maybe in a little bit more detail of what would be coming back to the City Council, if that's okay, at a future date, or I can pause and answer any questions. I'll leave that up to you.
Well, I think you can keep going.
So what we'd be proposing to come back to the City Council is the operations agreement between the City of Willmar and Hometown Fiber. The City Council has heard a few different occasions, work sessions and council meetings of where we're at to date, trying to get you survey information. We've got letters of support tonight, a letter of intent, working towards giving you the information, seeing the community support, the business support behind this initiative. To get into the more greater detail on what the agreement looks like between the city, Hometown Fiber, and potential internet service providers, what we really need to have happen is approval of the operations agreement. Those detailed and contracted talks between Hometown Fiber and the ISPs cannot happen until that operations agreement is passed. In general, very high level, again, this is the governing document of how the infrastructure would work between the city and how Hometown would operate it. But also, there's no financial upfront, I'll be careful how I say this, approval of the agreement does not, would not cost the city any money. The structure, what's proposed in the structure of that agreement, those costs to Hometown Fiber would not occur until the first subscriber is up and online. So it's not a financial ask at the time until that first subscriber comes on, but we still feel it's important to be able to pass and approve this agreement for the Hometown Fiber to begin those more detailed negotiated conversations with ISPs. Those ISPs are out there. They want to see a level of commitment come from the city before they go into more detailed conversations on how they propose they would operate their portion, their side of the network. So that is why we feel right now that would be our next big milestone, a big achievement to bring back to the City Council is once we have an opportunity to review, the city attorney has an opportunity to review, Hometown Fiber has an opportunity to review and approve that document, it would be before you for your consideration. In a perfect world, I'd like to have that back on May 20th, but maybe I'll say between now and no later than the first meeting in June would be our tentative timeline to bring that operations agreement back to the council. I'll pause there, Mr. Mayor.
Kyle, you talk about the operations agreement, and we can't move ahead to even solicit communications with ISPs until we have that operations agreement, correct?
That's correct. We were fortunate enough That's been the conversation as of late. We were fortunate enough to receive a letter of intent from an ISP already that is interested on providing service to the network. Again, the letter of intent is not, it's not a contractual obligation, it's just they're interested. The other ISPs that we have been, Hometown has been in communication with, again, like I stated, are not comfortable moving forward until they see that level of commitment from the city to have those detailed conversations with Hometown.
I would encourage the council to do so, to approve that operations agreement. And how does that change things for marketing and outreach, and what other information would you be coming to the council with that being done?
That's a great question. So we all know that there's efforts need to continue to be made for outreach, education, marketing. We'll use our fancy words around it, but it boils down, it's marketing. We need to be able to promote the project so people sign up for the service. If we don't have a successful outreach campaign, a successful marketing, it's hard to gain traction. It's hard to make sure that the right information is being posted out, is being shared amongst the community, and accurate information is being shared. Accurate and complete information is being shared out in the community. We really feel that a continuation of the Community Outreach and Education Agreement, which the City Council did approve on February 5th for $20,000, that funding has been spent. That's what we've been working for. Hometown has been in Willmar all week, literally since last Monday, I believe. Talking Sunday, working with different businesses, doing different community outreach things, building a online survey for businesses, meeting with the chamber, meeting with a variety of different businesses. So one of the other asks that we'd come back with is to be able to fully fund up to a certain dollar amount that was included in that. And I'll do some simple math here real quick. Roughly $65,000 more would be our ask. There's an opportunity that we can look at, and that would be part of we'll bring that full recommendation back, but we may not need to include any new money to fully fund that, but we'll have a more clear and clear path forward when that's ready to be submitted to the council.
City Attorney Robert Scott, you've worked on the operations agreement, right?
Correct, Mayor.
Is it ready for the council, or?
I would agree with Mr. Box's characterization. I'd say we're almost 99% of the way there. The drafting is done. There might be a couple blanks that we had left in it to be completed that still need to be filled in. And we'd recommended some additional vetting of the financial commitments the city would be making. Those will be important decisions the city will live with for a long time. There's nothing in it that jumps out as like a red flag or is concerning. It's just we wanted to make sure this isn't an agreement that we should bring forward for approval and then realize we still had a handful of issues that we weren't quite on the same page with. So it's just the last mile of this agreement that we need to finish and make sure it's ready and both parties are completely on board when it comes to this body for approval.
When or would we see that completed and brought to the council?
Roughly 2 to 4 weeks, I would. No later than the first meeting in June.
Okay. All right. Yes, Justin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How does that affect the timeline? Last week we saw, a timeline that showed what happened if we delayed. I'm trying to remember, are we?
Yeah, that's a great point. In the packet, there is a timetable in there that was provided by Hometown. Ultimately, it does delay. That we do have. There is some flexibility in there. We need to be able to make a determination with Hometown on how late we can actually go before it would no longer be considered a 2024 project to build. Again, we'll have, right, if it was 2 weeks, I would say it's hopefully simple enough as pushing that timeline back 2 weeks, 2 or 4 weeks, but we'll have a clear recommendation or a clear presentation on that.
I certainly don't want to rush the consideration, and it's going to be an agreement that we'll live with for a long time. But currently, if we're waiting 2 to 4 weeks, is it your estimate that we'd still be able to have that as a 2024 project?
It'd be close.
Okay.
It'd be very close. Yeah, that's one thing I'd like to take an opportunity to say as well, Councilmember, if that's all right, Mr. Mayor, is that when we started this project coming up on 2 years ago, started researching, there have been tons and tons of staff hours going into research and to see how viable and realistic a project like this is. We have climbed hurdle after hurdle, made several accomplishments, hit several milestones, and when you have these one-off conversations with individuals, it's, you know, hey, this isn't a bad idea. So it's that reassuring factor of a project like this could work. And one thing I've not shied away from talking in the public, speaking in different capacities, is that there are risks with this project, and we want, as staff, want to make that very clear to the City Council that this isn't a risk-free project by any means, and that's why we're working so hard to make sure that this is airtight, that there's no mistakes, that we're doing our due diligence, both from the city aspect. Hometown Fiber has been extremely diligent, very knowledgeable, and that's why we've assembled a team with the city attorney, with Laura Lewis and her firm, with Baker Tilly, and various other people to come together, review these documents. Bolton and Mink with the civil engineering side of it. We want to make this an airtight project and a complete project when you are asked to vote on it.
Well, thank you for that. I applaud your efforts and the whole team that you just mentioned right there as well. Minimizing the risk is a significant portion of this.
Mayor. Yes. Mike?
I'm on this committee, and that's, like you say, 2 years ago. And the first question that we asked was risk. I mean, that was our number one question that we asked of the committee. And I'll tell you that they've been very good about getting information to us and calling us and having more meetings. I can't tell you how many meetings we've had, but they've done an excellent job of trying to dot their I's, cross their T's, bring it back to us, and then, bringing it back to us here as well. But risk was the number one key question that we had right out of the box. Where are the risks? And we started going through those one by one. So.
All right. Any other questions?
I just wanted to clarify the $65,000 for the marketing, that comes from Industrial Park Fund, right?
Yes, so the February 5th action was up to $20,000. That came from the Industrial Park Fund. I'm hoping that when we bring back an additional request for the balance of that, that we can maybe utilize some unspent funds from this project to go towards that. But so it could be that or a combination of that and a new ask, or it could be all coming from the industrial park again. But we'll have a clear path or clear recommendation when that's brought back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Audrey?
Thank you, Mayor Reese. I asked the question the other night about kind of the revenue and expense and who's paying what to who, but I also got an email regarding that, so I knew I wasn't the only one questioning that. I wondered if you would just walk through that one more time. Where does the revenue come from?
Sure.
And where do the expenses go?
Sure. I might ask Marlena to join me if that's okay, and she can fill in where I miss. So the revenue would come in, broadly speaking, the revenue comes in from the internet service providers. The internet service providers charge you a monthly fee, just like you experience now for your services. Round numbers, let's just use it's a $100 bill, a $100 monthly invoice that you get for that internet service. There's a percentage of that invoice that comes back to the city to help pay off those debts, operational costs. The number is in my packet here, but it is a percentage out of that network revenue that would come back to the city. So what those funds would pay for, like I said, is the operational costs. That could be additional marketing. That would obviously go towards any of the debt that the city would incur, and that's the overall goal, is to collect enough revenue to not increase taxes. And that's what you saw in the pro forma, was a model on how that could look like and how that would operate, of a take rate of anywhere between 8% up to a goal of 40%. Does that broadly answer your question? I might have missed something here. I missed
No,
part of your question.
There would not be any type of franchise fee because it's only internet, correct?
So that's a great question. So right now, in the pro forma that you saw, there was a franchise fee that was included. However, that is still a bill that was to be considered at the legislature this year, is to be able to apply a franchise fee for all for all internet service providers. If that needs to come out, the model can be changed to support a franchise fee coming out. Again, it's an example of showing what we are hoping to expect at that time.
Okay. And expenses, so the expenses are to build the system, but also expenses to Hometown Fiber. Could you just walk through the expense side of it?
Yes, so the expenses to build the system, that was the $9.2 million would be the build out of the project. Revenue coming in would again go towards that, and then it's in this draft agreement, the operations agreement, there are set fees of, dependent on how many users are on the network, that set fee would then go back to Hometown to operate on that network. Is that clear?
Yes, I think.
Clear as I can make it right now. Again, those details are still, those are some of the details that
Yes.
still need to be
All right.
figured out.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Rick? Do you have something? Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So how many ISPs are there currently in Willmar?
Off the top of your head.
The 10, 12?
I'm not going to have Mayor and Council, I can have an exact number for you on that. 8 to 10,
Okay, and they,
who offer different services to different areas, some residential, some business.
but they all won't sign up with you?
No.
So we're hoping to get some from out of the area that aren't here now? Or how are we gonna pay for it?
Pay for the ISPs to join on?
Pardon?
Pay for the, I'm sorry,
Well, to get paid, you have to have an ISP that's on a hookup
correct.
to the fiber. If no one signs up, and if no customers sign up to the ISP, how's it gonna be paid for?
The network?
I can answer that.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry.
So that's part of the outreach. That's part of this network operations agreement that needs to be signed that would allow Hometown to go into those conversations. In this draft agreement that you would be asked to be considering at a late future date, we could set the number of ISPs needed in this agreement for us to go forward. So whether it's one ISP to move forward or it's 10 ISPs to move forward, if we don't have the required number of ISPs that's laid out in this agreement to build the network would not get built.
So you gotta have them signed up before you start.
That's the goal, yes.
And you have one right now, maybe,
We have a letter of intent from one, yes.
and they're from out of town. They're not
They are regional.
in business here now.
They are in the region, yes.
And then, I don't understand why we would work against the private sector.
We're not trying to work against the private sector. We're trying to create an infrastructure for private business to operate on.
Isn't that what the private sector's supposed to do?
They have not done it.
Well, all I see on Facebook now on my phone, Spectrum is reducing their fees dramatically for residential.
Okay.
So it's pretty tough to fight a billion-dollar corporation. They got a lot of money to spend if they want to.
I got a question. Then why did my daughters just go up to $102 from Spectrum?
Well, Councilman O'Brien, you're on the municipal utilities. This is a utility project. Why isn't the municipal utilities doing this?
I have no idea, but that's not the question. The question is, you said prices were going down. They went up.
Well, Mr. Larson's here from Charter, and he talked to us last week.
Yeah.
And he said the prices are going down and they're expanding in town.
Well, I'm just saying,
So-
she just got a bill for $102.
Well, I bet you she has other stuff
Nope.
with
All
her.
right, Julie?
Yep. Okay, the impetus for why this started was economic development and to build out to the industrial park. And what we learned last week, when Charter did address us, was that they still were not going to be able to provide the service that is needed out in industrial park. This was all started with economic development. And so that is the goal. That is what we need in order to fill up our industrial park and bring tax base and business to the community.
Can I just respond with that? Kyle, you said there's 26 businesses out in the industrial park
Throughout
that are
this,
interested?
throughout the city, yes.
Oh, throughout the city. Well, 26 customers isn't gonna pay $25 million over,
I would agree with that.
so, okay. So there is risk, and the risk goes to the taxpayers. So, and like I said before, the company in Litchfield was willing to go from Canyon High down Willmar Avenue out to Industrial Park. And I was wrong on the price. I said 1.3, it was 1.4. And then you told them there was gonna be a franchise fee, and they said, forget it. But once they were in, they would expand throughout the entire city at their own cost. So I just don't understand why we would spend $25 million.
Yeah, to be clear, Councilmember, we did not, for that specific one, it was asking the question if there would be revenue sharing or a similar setup to what we're doing now. It was not the city imposing a franchise fee.
That's what they said.
Okay.
Anybody else? Well, this was for information only tonight.
Yes.
But you're going to come back with the operations agreement, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right, next is bid award 2408, Jared. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Council. In your packets this evening is a resolution for awarding the 2024 Seal Coat and Crack Fill Improvements Project. On April 18th, we received 2 bids. They range from $285,880.57 to $418,167.72. The low bid was submitted by Aztec, and the resolution this evening in your packets recommends award to Aztec for your consideration.
I can make that motion.
We got a motion.
Second.
And we got a second to adopt the resolution awarding the project to Aztec. Questions, discussion? Being none, roll call.
Councilmember Osk?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Schuldis?
Aye.
Begley?
Aye.
Osmus?
Aye.
Butterfield?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Now we need a resolution approving the as-bid budget.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Nelson?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Schuldis?
Aye.
Begley?
Aye.
Osmus?
Aye.
Butterfield?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Osk?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Jared, tell us about 2301A change order.
Good evening, Mayor Council. Change order number 1 for the 2301A project, also known as the Gorton Avenue improvements, consists essentially of 2 components. One is related to cost, one is related to timeline. The cost components first, storm sewer alignment that was in conflict with a Willmar Municipal Utilities newly installed primary line. Soil conditions, we're all familiar. We run into this occasionally on projects in town. Ran into some soft soils out on the project. And then one of those components is related to a deduction associated with a pipe material suggested by the contractor. We evaluated it, and it resulted in a cost savings for that. And then lastly, the completion dates, the project, or the contractor is currently working on the project, working towards completion, and the change order adjusts those completion dates in the agreement to June 21st for substantial completion, and then final payment being ready for August. Total change order amount is in the amount of $13,500.85. Be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, a resolution is included in your packets this evening.
I have a motion for the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion. Tom?
Jared, is this on Gorton Avenue where they're digging up outside of the Fairview Cemetery right now?
No,
Okay,
no.
okay,
It's associated with work that was completed last year.
okay. Because I thought that was part of last year, and I noticed that they were still, digging it up.
Yeah, so they're finishing up the storm sewer and water main that was remaining when they stopped last fall.
Okay.
Yep.
Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I asked this before, that party that had a problem with an easement, did that get corrected? Are you still working on it?
No, that information will be brought to council shortly.
That's what you
Yep.
said last time. So.
Yeah, I think I indicated prior to June 4th, but yes, it will be.
All right, just
Yep.
wondering.
Anybody else? Roll call.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Schuldis,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Osk,
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution passes. Thank you, Jared.
Thanks, council.
Justin, we're looking at bike pedestrian trail plan.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, council. The action before you tonight is a request from the Willmar Parks and Recreation Department to enter an agreement with Bolton and Mink to develop a master bike, pedestrian, and trail plan. The purpose of this plan is to identify pedestrian and cycling routes that have gaps or barriers, and implementation and assistance to the city to prioritize these improvements to the city residents. Staff received 2 proposals for this plan. The plans were reviewed by the local bike advocacy group along with city staff. We believe the development of this plan will help improve our chances of receiving grants for trail improvements and trail projects. There was $50,000 allocated in the 2024 CIP plan, and this agreement would be for $45,700 with Bolton and Mink. And I will stand for any questions you may have.
We need a motion for the resolution.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Discussion. Audrey?
Just a question. Thank you, Mayor Reese. We're working with the county on this also to make sure that their plans and our plans will
It would
work
be
together as part of this, right?
a total implementation for the area, yes.
Okay.
Yep, so we're not, make
Not
sure
just
we're
doing the
not,
city
yes,
and-
we're not, we don't want to overlap or
Right.
duplicate, or
Yep.
we want to work in,
That was my
in
understanding.
conjunction.
so
Yep,
Just had to
correct.
clarify. Thank you.
Correct.
Any other questions? If not, roll call.
Councilmember Schuldis,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Osk,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Justin, tell us about adopt a bench and a tree.
Thank you, sir. The action for your consideration tonight is to adopt a resolution approving and adopt a bench and tree program. The goal of this program would be to standardize options for citizens to, get a bench or a tree for a loved one or their grandkids or a family member. We occasionally will get requests from people, hey, I would like to put a bench in at Ramblewood Park, wherever it may be. And we've always tried to work with these people to get this done, but we've never really had a program or a plan in place. So our park director, Rob Baumgarten, has put together this application that would standardize that process. And the donors would meet with the city. We'd come up together with a location. They'd have standardized choices on either the tree or the bench, colors and whatnot, and we would come up and work together for a location for that. And so that's kind of the thought of this program.
In the past, I've had, when I was mayor pro tem, I stood a lot of times on the planting of trees that the Public Works came out and did on Arbor Day with students.
Correct.
This is the kind of thing you're talking about?
Not necessarily with like the students, but this would be with like a family that would want to dedicate a tree, just a single tree to a loved one, or like I said, grandkids or something like that. And we would work together with them on picking a location for that. We still do the planting we try and get a classroom each year to go out and plant trees with us on, when we're out planting the trees.
Yeah. And then there was the bench. We've had Eagle Scouts do projects. Is that some of them?
Some of those benches are still around. Some of them we've run into issues where we've had to relocate the bench, or the bench has been damaged and we haven't had a contact for that person to reach out to them. So hopefully with this program, we'll have a file on this family purchased this bench back in 2024. We placed it here, and so we can still reach out to that family if in the future something occurred, like I said, vandalism or there's a development in the park, or we had to move playground equipment and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Audrey.
There's 2 pages in here that look like maybe they can be printed like a brochure kind of thing. Is that what that's meant for? And is it somewhere on our website, or how do we get them?
I don't believe it's up there yet. I think once we have this approved by council, then we can work on getting the brochures out and put on the website and contact information.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Rick?
Just an idea, it'd be nice to have Peace Officer Parkway out here, and maybe the families could plant a tree for a peace officer.
Absolutely. We can certainly look into that. Yep.
Any other questions? I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Butterfield.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Osk.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Schultes.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Next is introduction for establishment of tax increment finance housing district. And set a hearing. Christopher.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Today will serve as an introduction for the request to establish a TIF, a tax increment finance housing district, for a proposed 75-unit senior living facility located on 3 parcels east of Walmart at 9th Street Southeast. Trident Development is proposing 61 assisted living units and 14 memory care units. The parcels are 958410510, 958410500, and roughly 3 acres of 958410560. City staff received a TIP application on April 26, requesting a pledge of 90% from the city. Identified there's a $3.5 million financial gap for the project, citing that the current estimated cost for construction and development makes the project cost prohibitive without financial assistance. The TIF payments will serve to support the elderly waiver or affordable rental units. for residents who are unable to afford the private pay rates. Of the 75 units, 15 of them will be reserved for households at 50% or below AMI, and that's roughly 33,000 annually. After the presentation today, I am seeking a motion to set a public hearing for Monday, July 1st, to consider to adopt a resolution approving the TIP plan and TIP district, and a motion to approve the summary of publication for tonight. In the audience is Andy Brummer and Roger Fink from Trident Development. Mr. Fink would like to share some details about the proposed development, followed by Michaela Hewitt, who you've heard from today, of Baker Tilly, to discuss the tax increment projections and financial analysis for your reference. Mr. Fink.
Good evening, Mr. Fink.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, my name is Roger Fink. I'm a Senior Vice President and Principal of Trident Development. We are located in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Our company has been formed about 17 or 18 years ago, and we've been located there ever since. We really have specialized and concentrated our development efforts in senior housing and apartments. And over the course of the last 17 years, we have developed 22 assisted living facilities throughout central Minnesota, many outstate communities, and some in the metro. I have some prepared remarks here this evening, but I don't plan to get into a lot of great detail about the project specifically, but I did want to share with you some information about our company, our concept, and about the marketplace here. We identified Willmar as one of those communities outstate that has a strong unmet need for senior housing, especially assisted living. I know that's been a hot topic or a broad topic at the city recently with Bethesda's expansion and the care center, and you're probably going to be hearing more about senior housing in the years to come. Our business is very involved in senior housing right now, and our management company is predicting a silver tsunami of seniors retiring and aging and needing more and more assistance and with assisted living facilities. We conducted a market study for the Willmar market about 6 months ago. The market study indicated that there's going to be a need in the Willmar market by 2027 of 384 more assisted living units. And of those, the demand for affordable units or units that need some sort of subsidy is somewhere in the range of 225 more units. So the demand is there, and the demand is growing. We see that as an opportunity for us to move forward, expand our portfolio of assisted living properties, and we'd love to bring our project to Willmar. Excuse me. As Christopher said, we have a financial gap in getting that done. Of the 22 properties so far that we've developed, we typically find a financial gap, and that comes in the form of two things. There's a gap in just the basic development and construction costs for the project, and the other gap is the financial operations side of things. And so the tax increment financing tool has come in very useful in many, many of our assisted living projects. We've successfully negotiated with over 12 communities in Minnesota with a tax increment financing district. Each one of the projects that we've done TIF with have been successful. They've completed their improvements, they've made their certifications, and it's been operating very nicely. In fact, I think one of our early ones is now retiring this year, finally paying off the TIF. So It's been a very useful tool for communities looking for assisted living properties, and it's been a useful tool for us from the development side. One of the things that's also driving the extra cost and need for public assistance is a new licensing requirement by the Minnesota Department of Health. So Minnesota Department of Health licenses the operations of our assisted living facilities. We need an MDH license to operate. They recently came out with a requirement saying if you want to be licensed for assisted living and memory care, as we do, and you want to build your facility out of wood frame materials, then you cannot exceed 2 stories in height. That poses some economic problems for us as developers and contractors because it changes the economics of not only the construction, but also on the development side, we then need more land because we can't go vertical like we used to. Changes economics for construction and for operations. So we started looking for opportunities where we can make that work. We've worked with our architect to come up with a 2-story plan that we think is efficient and meets the intent of the code. So this is our first foray into that new code realm with a 2-story facility. That being said, we have built other 2-story properties in other communities, but that was before this new licensing requirement came down. Otherwise, we probably would be looking at a 3-story or a 4-story structure, okay? As Christopher mentioned, our TIF request would be a pay-as-you-go TIF as opposed to an upfront TIF. That meaning that the city doesn't have to provide us any money up front. The only money we collect is by the return of the real estate taxes that we would ordinarily pay anyway. I think you've all had some experience with tax increment financing. Our plan would to reserve 20%, at least 20% of our rental units for families who or families, or I should say households that are at 50% or less of the area median income, as Christopher mentioned. And we certify that annually to the city that we're complying with that requirement. Our request would also guarantee those units be preserved for at least 25 years here for the city. So I think that kind of concludes my initial remarks. If you have any questions, I'm happy to stand for any.
All right, thank you. There might be questions, but, well, let's take questions. Tom.
With only 20% for low income, and you're seeing a high demand by 2027, aren't you guys going to be filled up, and overflowing?
That's a good question. By 2027?
Yep. You said that you guys need over 300 units by 2027 in this area, and it's...
Sure. What I'm trying to illustrate is that there is this unmet need, there's this demand. We're hoping to capture or satisfy some small portion of that demand.
So the demand's going to be there, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you would have no problems filling these apartments up?
If they were all private pay, that would be one thing. But there's a strong need for individuals, households, seniors who can't afford to pay the private pay rate. So we're going to create some affordable units for that resident.
Yeah, and only 20% of the things on there, but you're asking the rest of the citizens to, for you guys not to pay tax on it, for what, 25 years, or how long you guys going to go with this TIF?
So with this TIF, the city would continue to receive the taxes that are currently paid on the land. I think that's almost $10,000 a year. And you'll be collecting 10% of the taxes that we pay for overhead and administration. So there will be some revenue stream to the city from that portion of the tax district. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, a little bit, but I think it's a little bit low on, for the really needy people, you know, that need it. You know, we have a lot of TIFs out there right now, and we always are doing the bare minimum for this.
Yeah.
I want, if we're gonna start, you know, let business come in here and make money, we need a little bit more commitment to help out the ones that are really in need.
Understand that.
You guys have 22 properties. You guys are in need right now. You guys have got your money coming in. You guys are looking at increasing your revenue. And, you know, you're only looking at doing about 20%, you know, to help.
So the 20% ask is statutory. That's the way that the TIF statute reads in law, 20% at 50% of median income. That's what's directing our request.
So you couldn't go up over the 20% at all by law or what?
Now, what we find is we typically end up with an excess of 20%. Here's part of the reason. We will admit a resident who wants to be private pay, has the resources for private pay, but oftentimes they can outlive those resources. And we don't have the philosophy of saying you have to move out now because we only have so many units of affordable, and so you have to find another place to live. That's against our philosophy. So we enroll them into elderly waiver so they can remain in their home and increase the percentage of elderly waiver residents that we have. So we often find in excess of 20%. But we have to pay the bills too.
Rick?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So this district is gonna run for 25 years?
That's our request.
I don't think we've ever done one that long.
Understood.
What, is it 15 years is the longest we've done? Or
I can't answer that.
usually it's 10 or 12. So
We have seen other cities step up to the 25-year term. That's probably more of a Michaela discussion.
yeah. And then do you have to rezone this property? It's probably commercial now.
Yeah, we'll be back to Planning Commission and Council with land use approvals. We need to get the TIF started earlier so we understood whether there was support for that or not. If not, then we have to reconsider our plan for Willmar. But yeah, I don't know if a rezoning necessarily, except we might need a conditional use to have this use on that zoning district.
Because if it's zoned commercial, the taxes are higher. If it goes down to residential or R4, property taxes should go down.
That's another conversation with the county assessor. Yeah.
You and I have sat at this table for a long time, but I don't think we'll be here in 25 years. I hope not. All right.
Yes. Any other questions for me? Thank you.
All right, I need a motion. Oh, Audrey.
Yes.
Michaela?
I'm going to have Michaela Hewitt to go over the TIF projections and analysis of the site.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I just had I'll make it even shorter presentation regarding tax increment, what the request was, and then consideration for next steps, which I think leads into a lot of the questions that council had asked tonight. So I'll briefly go through again. What we've prepared for you tonight is the initial tax increment financing analysis based on the application that was submitted by the developer. The request is for financial assistance through the establishment of a tax increment financing housing district. We also prepared preliminary financial review and analysis that we can discuss, as well as the consideration for next steps should the council choose to proceed. We already went through what the request is for the type of project. They are requesting a housing tax increment district, which does have a maximum 26-year term. There are different types of tax increment districts, and they each have different maximum terms. That is the maximum. It is the discretion of the council, should they choose to do or recommend a lesser term if it would meet the financial needs of the project. Again, the request is for $3.5 million, with the annual tax increment revenues providing additional cash flow to support the debt service repayment on their project. So tax increment financing, just a quick background for those that may not be familiar with the tool. It is a financing tool that communities use to capture tax-based growth that's resulting from a new development or redevelopment project. There is a fixed term for the capture of those incremental dollars, and then that new development capacity that's created is added to the existing tax base for all the taxing entities. So the tax increment revenues are generated by the increased property value that is created when that property is developed. Here's a little illustration showing how the tax increment tool works. The dark green area, that's the base tax and value. The current value of the property is frozen over the life of the district. The taxes that are generated from that existing land value continue to be captured by the other taxing entities. You are correct in certain cases if the value classification changes from one use to another, it won't impact the value of that base, but it could impact what the taxes that are calculated based on the classification change. The gray shaded area, those are the incremental taxes that are created from the new project. They are captured by the tax increment district to finance the TIF eligible improvements. And then once the tax increment district is closed or decertified that last year, the kind of lime chartreuse area, that's the high new tax and value that was generated from the tax increment district, and now that new value and taxes flow to all the taxing entities, including the city, county, and school. When you're creating a tax increment district, they are all created within what's referred to as a project area. The city, the entire boundaries of the city are your project area, and that is where the tax increment dollars can be spent. The tax increment financing district is the specific project, and it's the 3 parcels that are included for this project that would generate the tax increments. Prior to creating a tax increment district, there is a TIF plan budget that or a TIF plan that includes the budget, the geographic boundaries, and the purpose for which the district is being created. There is a public hearing that council would hold prior to considering creation of the district, and the last step would be certifying that tax increment district with the county. Roger did discuss the mechanism for which tax increment financing can be used. The 2 methods are pay-as-you-go or upfront. With pay-as-you-go, the developer finances 100% of the costs upfront. There would be a TIF note issued by the city to the developer pursuant to the terms of a TIF agreement. There are requirements the developer needs to meet regarding the construction of the building, the total investment in the site, and then the ongoing certification of the affordable units. All of those and any other conditions within the agreement need to be met before the developer is reimbursed. And they are only reimbursed by available tax increments. So if future increments come in lower, there is no additional obligation to the city to meet those needs as compared to if the increment comes in higher, there's a chance that the district could be closed early. There are only certain costs that you can finance with tax increment. There's a listing here. One of the things to note, because we are looking at a housing district, you've got more flexibility to be able to use all of tax increment, all of the more traditional costs that would be acquisition, public improvements, site improvements, grading, demolition. You can also include the cost of constructing affordable housing with the housing district. Prior to creating a tax increment district, there are statutory findings that the City Council needs to make. One is that the TIF plan will afford maximum opportunity consistent with the sound needs of the city as a whole for development, that the TIF plan conforms to general plans for development of the city as a whole, and that the project would qualify for inclusion within this specific type of district, and in this case, it's a housing tax increment district, and there are specific criteria for the different types of districts that can be created. The last finding is that the proposed development, in the opinion of the city, would not reasonably be expected to occur solely through private investment. This is referred to as the but-for test. But for the provision of providing tax increment financing, this project would not proceed without the tax increment. And that is, those are the findings that need to be made, and those require the additional analysis leading up to the public hearing to consider the creation of the district. Just quickly, to create a housing tax increment district, It is not based on the current condition of the property, but it is based on the development that is going to be created. At a minimum, at least 20% of the units need to be occupied by persons or families with incomes no greater than 50% of the area median income, or at least 40% of the units are occupied by persons or families at no greater than 60% of the area median income. So these are the minimum percentages that are required to qualify as a housing tax increment district. There's also a limit on how much of a square footage of a building receiving tax increment assistance from a housing project. Not more than 20% of the square footage can be for commercial, retail, or other non-residential uses. The other important point with the tax increment housing district is that the income limitations, those two tests of the 20 at 50 or the 40 at 60, would apply for the duration of the district for which they're receiving assistance. So oftentimes when you're looking at what the term of assistance is, it's both on the financial gap of the project as well as that ongoing requirement of providing those affordable units. And those, again, require annual certification to the city that they are meeting those minimum requirements. So part of our financial review, and I would say we're at a preliminary basis of reviewing the application, presenting the information to council with the expectation that for future direction, providing additional financial analysis results. I do want to say when we're reviewing a project, there are two tests that we look at. The first is, does the project need tax increment assistance? Is it unlikely to proceed but for the use of the tax increment? And if the answer to that is yes, then it's determining what an appropriate amount in term of the public assistance would be. And that's based on council input, based on the financial needs of the project. And again, with this, what the ultimate term of the district would be with the provision of the affordable housing units. It is about a $22.3 million project. Here's an overview of the sources and uses, breaking down on the uses side between the acquisition, construction, and other soft costs. The financing for this project, debt at about $15.6 million or 70% of the total sources. Equity of about 3.1, and then you'll see TIF is 3.5. Even though we're illustrating this as upfront, as I said, the developer would be responsible for financing this gap amount, but for purposes of showing how that fits into the total sources, we included it here, knowing that would either be financed with additional TIF mortgage or additional equity or other funding sources. Switching gears to the estimated tax increment revenues, the existing land value estimate is about $188,000. That includes the land value of the two parcels and then a percentage of the third parcel, of which only a portion is going to be acquired and would be included within the tax increment district. We started with an estimated taxable value of about $15 million. That is based on the construction costs of the project, not the total development, just the construction cost. We anticipate additional conversations with the county assessor to understand what the taxable value of this project would be. But based on the these initial projections of $15 million of value, the total estimated gross increment is about $224,000. Over the maximum 26 years is about $8.7 million. 10% retained by the city, which is the maximum for administrative or other expenses. Leaves a net increment of about $7.8 million. And that is the projected total collection over 26 years. The estimated present value of that in today's dollars, when looking at what it would support for a project cost today, is the $3.5 million. So this slide, based on these taxable value estimates and the maximum term, shows that it would take the full 26 years to meet the developer's request of $3.5 million, again, based on a present value estimate. When we're switching to the question I discussed of does the project need assistance, and if so, how much? These are some of the parameters that are under consideration for the city when determining what a reasonable level of assistance is. We look at what the return on investment is from both the public point of view, with again meeting the future market needs for this type of project. We also dive into the total development costs, looking at what the purchase price and per unit construction and soft costs are, developer fee, things such as that. What is the ultimate public to private investment? Looking at the total request of 3.5 as compared to the 22.3 total development cost budget. Similar to that, the public assistance and the private equity of 3.5 of TIF request and the 3.2 roughly of equity. What are the extraordinary costs that are the barrier for this project being constructed without assistance? That compare along with that with the financial gap, and then also the term of collection, knowing that is the maximum of 26 years. Cities use tax increment, as I said, it is a tool to stimulate development that otherwise would not occur. It's also to encourage development of uses or in areas that otherwise would not occur. It ultimately enhances or grows and diversifies the tax base. In certain cases, you might use it to finance infrastructure improvements. So in summary, based on what the developer has provided, without financial assistance, the project has a financial gap, and this is due to the affordable units and the reduced revenues for those units. With the financial assistance, the performance would improve because it would provide additional cash flow that would support additional debt or equity, depending on what the ultimate upfront funding source is to finance the $22.3 million project. In reviewing this project, and as I said, we're still at a high level of understanding the total tax increment revenues and the overall feasibility. But the analysis indicates that this project would not be viable without one or more of the following occurring: either an overall reduction in project costs that would offset the $3.5 million gap, additional annual cash flow through tax increment or other cash flow savings, or increased revenues, or additional upfront funding sources that again would close that $3.5 million gap. Assistance through tax increment as requested does provide additional cash flow to the project to meet what the gap as defined is. So the timeline for considering the creation of a tax increment district, it is about a 45 to 60-day process. It does require notifications. You'll see here it starts tonight with council meeting to review and discuss the TIF request. Should there be direction to proceed, there's typically planning commission review of the TIF plan that could be May 15th. County commissioner would be required to receive a notice of the city's intent for creation of a housing district also on May 15th. The county and school district are required to receive the draft TIF plan and the fiscal and economic impacts of the project 30 days prior to the public hearing, so that would be May 31st. Publication of the hearing notice needs to be at 10 to 30 days prior to the public hearing, so that was June 15th. And then the final action would be July 1st, in which the council would hold the public hearing, consider approval of the TIF plan and TIF district, and then the consideration of a TIF agreement, which again would contain the provisions of the TIF assistance between the city and developer, should the council choose to proceed. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or wait for the direction.
Any questions? Okay, Rick.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So do all three entities, the school, county, and city, do they have to, if they don't agree, or if one doesn't agree, will it still go through, or do they need all three?
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, when you're considering creation of a tax increment district, the city is the approving entity for creation of the district. It is required to provide notice to the county and the school district, but the county and school do not have a veto power or a voting power. So it is the sole discretion of the city council to create the district.
Any other
But
questions?
we don't get all the tax dollars. We get like 25%, the school 25%, the county gets the rest, so.
So when you're, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, when you're creating the tax increment district, I just pulled up this slide. That tax increment district is capturing all of the incremental taxes from, in this case, the $15 million building. And it's capturing the incremental taxes from the city, county, school. All of that is captured within the district to finance the improvements. Once the district's decertified, that increased tax base then would flow to the city, county, and school district in their respective tax structure. So the district captures all of the incremental taxes that are generated over the term of that district.
So did they change the law then? Because there were times when one of the entities didn't agree and they didn't get their portion.
Tax abatement is a tool that's similar to tax increment, where it works similarly, where you can capture the incremental taxes to finance certain improvements. A tax abatement does require approval by each of the taxing entities on its own. But tax increment allows the council to be the sole decider and the creation of, and authority on the creation of the district and the use of the dollars.
Any other questions? Tom?
This would be more for Tom Oden, just off of what Fairley said and what she said now about tax abatement TIF and our TIF districts we already have. Can you get us the numbers on what we have out there on tax abatement and the TIFs, for the next meeting, and how many years are left on each one of them? Because like Rick said, I don't think Willmar's ever done one for 25 years or so.
Yep, I could prepare that data.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anybody else? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion
Question.
to set the public hearing. Julie?
If I make the motion, does that mean we're going to go ahead with the 25 or 26 years? No, because we'll be discussing that at the public hearing. Got it. That's what I was clarifying. Okay, then I'll make the motion to establish a tax increment finance housing district to set a public hearing for July 1st, 2024 at 6:31 PM.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. We got Audrey, you got a question?
Yes, I just wondered if we could get the address again and the parcels. We didn't have that information, and I didn't get it written down completely. I think I know where it is, but
Yes, absolutely. Do you want them now, the 3 parcels?
either that or you can email them
Okay.
one way or the
I'll say it
other.
again for the record, and then
Okay.
I'll send you a note as well. The parcels are 958410510, 958410500, and roughly 3 acres of the northern part of 958410560.
It's right across the street from the east entrance to Walmart.
Yes, that's correct.
So that's going to be the size of the district then, or is it going to be expanded a little bit?
The district will consist of the 3 parcels for that site.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien,
All right.
Hosk,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Schuldis,
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
My motion passes. Christopher, you doing the second one too, the rezoning from R2 to general business.
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, for your consideration is to rezone parcel 952802480 from residential to general business. And request, I'm looking for a motion to set a public hearing date as well. The property address is 1125 3rd Street Southwest. That's at 3rd Street Southwest and Rosie Avenue Southwest. On April 17th, 2024, Matt Evans from Waltz presented to the planning commissioners the proposal of building a storage garage on the property, which currently contains only a parking lot. If you remember, there was a yellow house at the corner, and that has since been demolished. The property is currently zoned R2, and Waltz seeks to rezone it to general business to accommodate the construction of the garage for storage purposes only. On May 1st, 2024, planning commissioners voted to approve the rezoning of the parcel from residential to general business. The Department of Planning and Development did receive a phone call from a nearby resident, Marlon Brims, who emphasized maintaining a residential look on the west-facing side of any new building. So that's on the side that's facing 3rd Street. On page 247 in your packet, you'll see a proposed illustration of the garage. This structure has not been approved and will likely come back to Planning Commission before submitting for building permits. So tonight, I am requesting a motion to set a public hearing date for the rezoning of the parcel 952802480 for May 20th, 2024, and a motion to approve the summary of publication.
So,
Second.
a motion and a second. Discussion. Audrey?
Thank you, Mayor Reese. Drove by there today, and after reading the comments about keeping that residential kind of look, setback be equal to the house that's next to it? So that you don't have a building in front of a house?
That's a great question, Councilperson Nelson. With the rezoning of from residential to general business, the setbacks are a little different for general business districts. So,
I'm assuming less?
yes, you're correct in that assumption.
I'd be more concerned about that space versus what it looks like on the front if you're just basically looking at a building and it's in front of your house.
Well, these are notes that I'll definitely take back when the time comes for the placement of the structure, and that's something that can be brought up at Planning Commission as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Councilmember Butterfield?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Osk?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Schultes?
Aye.
Fagerly?
Aye.
Osmus?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That passes. Thank you, Christopher.
Motion for summary?
I don't have that. I don't think so. Consideration of Rendezvous LLC on-sale wine and is on-sale intoxicating liquor. Kyle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a clarification on the last agenda item.
Summary of publication.
Needs to be a summary of publication.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Roll call.
Councilmember O'Brien?
Aye.
Osk?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Schultes?
Aye.
Fagerly?
Aye.
Osmus?
Aye.
Butterfield?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Okay, that passes. We'll go on to the Rendezvous on sale.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Rendezvous LLC has submitted an application for a wine and on-sale intoxicating 3.2 liquor license. Their establishment will be located at 916 Litchfield Avenue Southwest under the name Rendezvous LLC, doing business as Rendezvous. Willmar Police Department has completed their background check, and staff are recommending approval of the application. And I believe representatives are here tonight if you have any questions for them.
We need a motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Osk?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Schultes?
Aye.
Fagerly?
Aye.
Osmus?
Aye.
Butterfield?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Item I, ATVs. Carl.
Yeah, I'll try to make this as clear as I can. Currently, Willmar does not have or does not allow Type 2 ATVs to be on the city roads. And Type 2, if you're not familiar, has a minimum width of 50 inches, I think, so that would exclude anything like a four-wheeler or anything like that. I think there's a growing number of people who have these type of vehicles who would like to use them to get from A to B in town. This wouldn't be for golf carts or four-wheelers or anything like that. It would be for street legal vehicles that have all the seat belts, all the lights, tail lights, blinkers, and things like that. I think we need to maybe take a look at coming up with a way that we can allow that. And I talked with Chief Felt a little bit about it, and I don't want to open a can of worms or go down a rabbit hole that's going to create all kinds of headaches for law enforcement. And if, as we look into this, if it turns out that this just isn't something that we can do, then we can't do it. But I would like to pursue allowing these type 2 vehicles access to the roads in Willmar. Does that make sense?
Okay. Chief, did you want to say anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The DNR statutes dealing with off-road vehicles and, excuse me, UTVs is very difficult to understand. The short version is that they are prohibited in city limits unless permitted by the city. So having some clarification along those lines would be helpful. I know there is an increased call or interest in using those type of vehicles. If an ordinance was passed, it would have a permitting process, and it would have all the safety features of a regular vehicle, require insurance and that type of thing. But certainly would be open to that discussion.
Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Rick?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, if they're already street legal, wouldn't they be legal?
No, technically not. The way it's set up is that even if they do have, if they're licensed and insurance and a number of other things, they're still only allowed on certain roadways and not allowed in the city. From my research here, not allowed in the city limits unless specifically permitted by the city.
So would they be like those 4-seaters or whatever they take up
Side-by-sides.
north?
Correct. Yep, the side-by-sides or the 4-seaters or that type of thing. So the larger, faster UTVs.
They're licensed, they're street legal, but you still need the city to say it's okay to drive?
Correct.
And they, excuse me,
Mike?
they also have ag license, usually on these as well, and different types of licenses that are approved. Like I say, the only one that isn't is the city.
Where do we go with this? Audrey?
I would like to just receive some more information on, kind of what those vehicles are. I know there's lots of little things running up and down streets with little people on them that are very concerning. And before we add, I'm just curious when you're talking about what is a type 2 and the ATVs, just safety-wise, with that. I know there's issues around the lakes with all sorts of vehicles and those types of things. So could we just get some more information before we
I think
consider
just
this?
generally on the type 2, they have to have a driver's license, don't they? To operate?
That's my understanding on a public roadway.
Right.
Yes.
Chief, what do you want?
But I agree, Audrey, I'd like research on this.
Yeah.
Should we have the chief come back with some descriptions?
I can do my best to decipher it, yes.
Is that okay, Carl?
Yeah, absolutely.
Audrey?
Are there golf carts that are street? I mean, we have golf carts that are
There are some.
around.
That would, certain cities allow permits for that too, which is allowable from the city.
Yeah.
But Willmar doesn't have any kind of permitting process for those right now either.
Okay, so we just need to do some research on different types of vehicles, perhaps, before we make any kind of decision.
Correct. There would be a number of decisions like what roadways
Yeah.
these vehicles would be
Okay.
allowed on and that type of thing.
All right. Is that good, Carl?
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? If not, Rick?
An update on the graffiti? Was that at Rice Park or was it at Robbins Island?
It was everywhere.
Well, just a park here, some building. I couldn't see it at Rice Park.
I think I heard update on graffiti. Is that right? Oh, yep, that was at Rice Park. And that is being investigated. I know Public Works is in the process of getting that removed and that type of thing right now too, so.
I drove by there tonight and I thought it was already removed.
It was gone.
I don't know.
It has been removed.
Okay.
Mr. Butler and his team did that.
Is that correct? Public Works crew.
The-
Public Works for getting home.
Didn't the auditorium have some also?
It did, yes. I'm not sure the status of the removal on that right offhand. It's also been removed, so, okay.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah. Can I ask one more question?
Huh?
Can I ask one more question as it relates to that?
Oh, I suppose.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Reese. Do we have cameras at Rice Park? We've had this conversation before, and we had trouble with bathrooms and trouble with graffiti and the same thing. I just think for safety, we should be investigating having cameras on so that we don't have to worry about some of those things.
All right.
I think Mr. Box would like to address
Can I
that.
answer that for you?
Sure. Currently, we do not have cameras at Rice Park. That is a conversation I've had with our Information Systems Coordinator. There may be some funding available in his current budget to at least get cameras at some key locations in town, but we're continuing to work on that.
Thank you. It's not the first time.
Anybody else?
Are we open for community pride?
Yeah.
Oh, are we done with that? Okay. I would like Pablo Obregon, our Director of Community Growth, to come forward and talk about the two events coming up, the John Salgado Maldonado Photo Gallery at the Minnesota State Capitol and Cinco de Mayo celebration on May 18th.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we continue to celebrate the accomplishments that we have by members of our community. John Salgado Maldonado was selected to do a photo exhibit talking about Willmar, both sites as also faces of people of Willmar, which, as you know, is changing. So it is, the opening is this Thursday, the open ceremony in the Minnesota Historical building, I believe, across from the Capitol. And Cinco de Mayo celebration is hosted by the new nonprofit of Latinos in town, which will happen on Saturday, May 18th, from 11 to 7 on the grounds of the middle school. So there is a lot of things getting prepared for. And those who do want to continue to celebrate 17th of May, or the Norwegian festivities on Friday, you can continue the party on Saturday at the middle school. So thank you, Julie, for the opportunity.
And that will be a free event.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Pablo. Thank you, Julie.
Before Pablo walks too far away, Pablo, can you come back? I was going to say, since you're at the podium, could you give a little recap too of the Human Rights Commission and the World Cafe event?
Yes, so the Human Rights Commission continues to ask the question, what is the role and what's the best way to serve our community? We have had a couple of meetings brainstorming on what's the best way to get feedback from the community. So there was an event hosted last week at the community center. 40 citizens, including commissioners and some members of the council, showed up to this conversation. We're gathering all the different feedback that we got. The plan is to continue the conversation of what is the vision of the Human Rights Commission forward. We will bring probably a report to you, council members and the mayor, and we will continue to find the best steps to be an effective commission for the city of Willmar. Thank you for the opportunity again. Can I go back?
Thank you, Pablo. All right, anything else? If not, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We're adjourned.